This is Dunnigan Kaiser, founder of Liberty and Finance. I'm now a licensed gold and silver dealer with Miles Franklin. Call me directly for the physical gold and silver that you need at the best price with personalized, private service from one of the oldest and best respected companies in the business. 30 years strong, A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, 0 complaints, licensed and bonded, insured delivery or vault storage or IRAs, excellent prices, privacy and confidentiality, pay by check, money order, ACH or wire, satisfaction guaranteed. Call me directly at 419-819-9209 or my associate at 310-562-6400 or email us at kaiser@milesfranklin.com. Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We have a returning guest of some renown. Bill Murphy is the co-founder of GATA.org. That's the Gold Antitrust Action Committee. He joins us this Monday, February 8th, 2021. Bill, thanks for coming back on.
Hey, Danny, what do you mean some renown? Only kidding. Good to be back.
Oh, lots of renown. Anyway, we wanted to get your input at this time. We've had some very eventful week and a half here on the silver market, and specifically amazing behavior around what was said to be a silver short squeeze that happened last weekend. I know it completely blew up the so-called getaway vacation I was trying to be on with my wife, and instead the phone didn't stop ringing, and texts and emails all day and into the night on Sunday, and then spilling over into Monday and so on. Can you walk us back to what happened as far as we can tell with the silver market last weekend and where we think this may be headed?
Well, we had more attention to silver in 2 days, honestly, than I've had in 20 years. I mean, it just came all at once. It was because of this Reddit crowd and the internet, fervor over these different commodity accounts, and people were making so much money so fast. I mean, my niece, who had never traded before, has now traded 2 of these stocks within 2 or 3 days and make 400% on her money. So all of a sudden, the attention went to silver, and of course, the short position that God has been trying to expose for many years and what was going on, and all of a sudden it was such a big deal. It caught everyone's attention, and I was as busy as you were, and it was just numbing. And then, of course, silver took off, and then Sunday night, Monday, but J.P. Morgan stopped it at 30. Despite they've been stopping it for years, and they've calmed the things down. And a couple of days ago, it was back to where it started, versus all these other stocks were still up way beyond where they took off. In my opinion, because I've been on this stuff for a long time, that there's a massive short position out there, that it really has helped the way these Reddit crowd people have focused in on it, even though God has spent 20 years trying to expose it and the mainstream press won't touch it. And yes, they got it back down, but I think it's the difference is this particular commodity really is in short supply. It's been suppressed. There's very short supplies in London and the United States. And I think it's going to take off again and gain more attention from the same crowd and bring in the big money, because it's the bullion banks and the U.S. government that are trying to keep it down. I think they're finally going to get their head handed to them. And it's been a long time coming, but we're getting closer and closer.
Well, there's many aspects of this we could get into. One of them that I observed personally, and I hadn't been involved in such a volatile market for metals. I had been in the past with stock trading decades ago, to where I experienced how difficult it can be for people to even get a clear understanding of where is the bid and the ask at, what's available, that sort of thing, being able to lock an order and get a response back in a timely manner. We had multiple major dealers that completely shut down their online web stores and their portals so that they weren't trading because there was so much lack of orderliness in the market. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because people, including sometimes yourself, have said we can expect there will be coming more volatile days in the future at some point. Well, when that volatility finally shows up, it can be a very disorderly experience. Can you talk to us about what you saw this weekend about that, the orderly market or the lack thereof?
Well, same as you. I mean, I know that Miles Franklin shut down. My brother's operation was practically shut down, and that you just couldn't buy any. People didn't want to make any commitments till they saw what happened on Monday. This was as of last weekend. And it really was wild. and I'm sure it caught the gold cartel, as I call it, these bullion banks, the U.S. government, the BIS, caught them by surprise, gave them an extra day to get their act together, what they were going to do, and they came back and attacked viciously. And there's a big commotion now about what the XLV is all about, because it should be, because J.P. Morgan, who's behind all of this nonsense, is the custodian. I just think it's because of the real deal physical supply problem, which also in the retail market's the real deal too. The coin numbers went up again today. That it's all going to add up, and this gold cartel, again, as I call it, is going to blow up. I mean, we've been waiting it for so long, and silver is so cheap compared to other assets. To be honest, this is one of the most frustrating times I've ever been through in over 20 years. You've got Bitcoin, it's like Groundhog Day. Bitcoin up, crude oil futures up, NASDAQ new highs, Dow new highs, gold nowhere, silver stuck. It's been day after day after day, and it's got to get caught up. It's gotten so bad, there are even some commentators saying gold and silver are no longer are vehicles to handle inflation. Huh? You got to be kidding me. And of course, it's all this price action makes market commentary. And because the bad guys, the bums, have kept this under control for the last 5 or 6 months, that's why people are talking that way.
We have a question here from Rainer Kromarek, who says, Bill, I want to ask a question on a topic no one has really had a good answer to yet. J.P. Morgan is rumored to have bought up to 1 billion ounces of silver. Do they do that on behalf of their own or for the U.S. government? This would make a great difference, because if they did it on behalf of the government or the Fed, the reason should be to suppress the silver price. If they did it just for commercial reasons, it might be a very profitable deal for them. So do we know anything about that?
Well, it's a great question. Ted Butler does a great job as a big advocate that J.P. Morgan is no longer short. I don't believe it for 1 second. Ted, God bless him, doesn't get involved in the government being behind this. GATA does. We think we're right. Obviously, maybe he thinks he's right. But in my opinion, J.P. Morgan's a Fed's bank. They've been fined almost $1 billion for their shenanigans in these markets. And I think that whatever they're doing, it's behind trying to control the operation. I mean, initially there was talk about the visible silver that J.P. Morgan has being Chinese gold and so on. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. But I know the way it's traded and what's been going on, that J.P. Morgan is fully behind it, again, because they are the Fed's bank. And with all these bullion banks, they've all coordinated together to keep it down. And I'm just hoping that they're reaching a point where they just can't do it anymore and they blow up.
You mentioned about a couple times now that silver has tested a $30 level. What are you seeing in terms of actual supply and demand of, order imbalance when it gets to that level? We have a question here from Clint Richardson. It says, in the last week of January, there was a surge in physical buying, rumors of Wall Street bets coordinating more than buying, then a sell-off the first week of February, driving the price down around $4 off of the recent $30 high price mark. So can you talk to us about those repeated tests of that $30 level and why that seems to be significant?
Well, technically you've got two key levels, $28 silver, say for the March futures contracts and the COMEX, and $30 where it's been stopped. It was stopped 5 months ago at that price. And look what other assets have done since then. The bad guys, again, as I call them, go all out in the futures market to affect the price, to slam it when it had that big breakout on a week ago today. And they're just doing everything they can to prevent new buying from coming in and overwhelming what they're doing, because people just saw what that Reddit thing did to markets in a very short period of time. And you can be sure as shooting that silver gets above 30, it will bring that crowd in again. And not just the little guys, but the big buyers also. And then all of a sudden they just can't handle it, because at some point the arbitrage has to work between the physical market and the futures market. You can't have the physical market continuing to go bonkers, the paper market being taken down by these bullion banks, and have it not just people just buy the futures and deliver it. There's a lot of talk. I think David Morgan has done this, where you've taken delivery of some COMEX futures and then melted it down and handled it in the physical market. So we're getting closer and closer. And if you look at a silver chart, it's a massive base because it keep going up and they knock it down. It goes up, they knock it down. I don't know how much longer they can continue to get away with this. It's just ridiculous.
Now, that last point you were making is another one that we had raised by a viewer. Robert D. says, the difference between the spot price versus the physical price seems to keep getting wider since last March. Is this the divergence people have been talking about, and is it going exponential? Before I let you unleash you on that question, I will give a little from the cheap seats as a physical bullion dealer's representative that I have been. I saw just a huge increase in retail premiums, and as the volatility spiked going into last weekend, so did the physical premiums. We saw physical premiums of more than 50% over the price of spot, and so on. And still, some dealers are still offering, like American Silver Eagles, at in some cases well more than 50% premium, which is obviously much higher than average. And what are you seeing as far as this divergence of physical versus paper price?
Well, it's a good point. I mean, I remember a week ago what the Eagles were $47, and it's just going to take its toll eventually. They've gotten away, again, as I call them, the bad guys, suppressing the price for so long. I mean, cheap. I mean, silver, $22 less than it was 10 years ago and 40 years ago. What other assets are like this? And it's just part of what they have done over and over again. They're so used to it. This is the trading operations that they have. We're just getting so close to blowing up. We just have to wait for that day when all of a sudden, they have to give up the ghost.
If we could press a little bit farther onto that same question, though, do you believe that at the time when we're seeing physical prices for physical possession going significantly higher like that than the spot price, is that actually evidence of that's where the real price is for possession of the metal versus the manipulated price?
Well, again, I guess it's how you look at it. For me, yes, that's where the price is, and that's where it's going. It's leading the way, and they're just doing, as I said, everything they can to hold the futures market down. And because these are the richest and most powerful people in the world, and they're pulling every maneuver they can to keep it down there. And if it's for real, and I don't see any reason why it's not, because again, as I mentioned earlier, I've been told for some time about the tightness in the physical market in that arena in London and in New York, and this just has to be something that they just can't handle anymore. And they managed to recover for a few days, and now silver's working its way back up, and they're trying to keep it down. But one day we're just going to wake up and boom, there it goes.
A related question here. You mentioned about the powerful forces that are at work here. People wonder, do the rules apply? Is there a rule of law? You've looked at this for a long time as Gold Antitrust Action Committee. Bill Wood asks, gentlemen, is there any way of knowing whether J.P. Morgan actually pays the fines, or is it simply a rosy press release to chill us out?
That's a great question. I think they're going to have to pay the fine somehow, just because of the authorities, following up on something like that, and somebody who's not involved in the operation going, hey, what's happened? Where's the money? So I think that they do. The question is, how much more fines should they be paying? That's my question. I mean, what they've done all these years is just really horrible.
Now, on the other side, you mentioned David Morgan in the past had related that one way to deal with this difference between physical price that retail products are available at versus the spot price on the COMEX is to actually stand for delivery on the COMEX. Christopher K. asks, what's the best way with the cheapest premium to purchase a good delivery bar? Would it need to be assayed and then resell it?
Well, again, it's a good question. I haven't done it in a long time. I once took delivery of a silver futures contract and had my broker hold it. I didn't actually take the delivery myself or go through the whole mechanism. So I'm not a good one to really ask on the mechanics of it, but I know that if people want to do that, it's all they have to do, and they have to get delivery. Otherwise, the exchange, it might as well shut down. So I think it's probably the cheapest way to buy silver.
People are also asking about gold and how much gold the U.S. actually has. We've heard that Canada sold off all of their gold reserves, decades ago. We've heard of Germany wanting to repatriate theirs, Poland, some other countries wanting to repatriate theirs. Australia, some people are advocating, should pull its gold back from the London vaults and so on. Des Artis asks, do you believe that A, America has more gold than it states it has, and B, that we will eventually return to a currency backed by it?
There's all kinds of commotion and talk about resets and this and that. And all I can say is God has tried to find out through audits and whatever how much physical gold the United States really has. There hasn't been an outside audit in something like since the 1950s. What asset doesn't get audited in all that time? It's ridiculous. Supposedly, I think the United States is supposed to have 8,300 some tons of gold, and I'll speak for myself personally. I don't believe that they have anywhere near that. That this gold has been leased out and to other countries and other ways to suppress the price. So we'd like to find out. We went to Ron Paul and some other people, been to Congress a couple of times, and boy, as my colleague Chris Powell says, the United States would rather allow our nuclear secrets to be divulged than what they're doing in the gold market.
We have a question about whether or not the shorts are occurring the way that we've heard theorized on the COMEX, for example. Charles Cherry asks, Pierre Lassonde just said on an interview over at the Mining Stock Education that there are no shorts on silver and the market is working fine. Do you have comments on that?
Oh, Pete, he's a smart guy, but World Gold Council, the same people, the establishment that never have gone into this issue ever, no matter what happens. I've been at this again for 22 years and met all sorts of people. And, if people really want to know what's going on, ask Eric Sprott or John Embry of Sprott and ask those people, because they've been honest all these years. And quite frankly, they made fortunes because they realized it was going to be unwound. But they're the ones who will speak the truth, not Pierre Lassonde.
Related question here from Tim S., who says, Bill, I don't believe that SLV actually has the silver that they say they have. While I trust Eric Sprott to actually be buying the silver when people buy PSLV, just wondering what would happen if, let's say hypothetically, 50 to 75% of the people, entities that hold SLV, sold, and on the same day they bought PSLV with those proceeds. Would that break JPM and the bullion banks?
Again, another really good question. I mean, who's to say this thing? Nobody knows what SLV does, as I mentioned earlier. It's J.P. Morgan's the custodian, so how can you trust it? I know Chris Marcus has come out recently with some really fine work on J.P. Morgan and SLV, and when I spoke to him last, I think they haven't done an audit on SLV since last March. So there's no way of knowing. I wouldn't trust them as far as I could throw them in terms of actually, being a legitimate operation. That's all I can say, because unlike a lot of the GATA stuff, I don't have any other knowledge directly of what they're doing or not doing, but I certainly wouldn't trust them. Sprott's a whole different matter.
We have a question about the future of GATA, and that is Larry Engel says, and this is a fairly optimistic supposition we start this question with, after everything is resolved with silver being fairly priced, what is the GATA organization's plans going forward long term? Will it dissolve or evolve?
Well, I can't speak for my colleague Chris Powell, who does an incredible job. And I know for me, I'm looking for $100 silver and maybe sail off into the sunset, because I want to win the game for all the people that have followed us all this time. And I know as far as God is concerned, what I'd personally like to do is have one big final celebration. We all get together and smile and laugh and enjoy a big victory.
Well, we have one more. It's not a question. It's a comment from Brendan, who says, "We love you, Bill. God bless you and your loved ones. Thanks for working so hard."
Thanks so much. Appreciate that.
So we've been grateful for your presence here, Bill. If people want to find out your writing and your work and your research, where should they get plugged in?
Well, again, as my colleague Chris Powell's been doing a great job all this time at www.gata.org, and people can sign up for free email stuff and all that kind of thing. And the Metropole Cafe, I've been doing it just a little bit longer than that, and people can sign up for a 2-week free trial at my website and see if it's of interest.
We'll put links to both of those in the description of this video. And folks, so that we don't lose track of you and you can make sure you find us, we're also, in addition to being here on YouTube, we're also on Brighteon and on Rumble. And if you want to get on our free email newsletter, just go to libertyandfinance.com, and over in the left-hand margin, put in your name and your email address. We'll get you on our free email that comes out. It'll have any interview we do with Bill or any interview with our other guests, our links, descriptions, any resources that they provide are all in there. You don't want to miss out on that. It's completely free. So Bill Murphy, co-founder of GATA.org, thank you for joining us here again on Liberty and Finance.
Thanks, Doug. I really enjoyed it.
If you've decided that now is the right time for you to protect your family's financial future by acquiring physical precious metals, gold and silver, I'm delighted to let you know that I have now become a licensed dealer's representative for Miles Franklin, one of the oldest and most trusted names in bullion dealerships. And we can provide you with physical delivery to your personal possession or to professional vault storage or precious metals IRAs. Just email me at libertyandfinance@protonmail.com, and please include your name and phone number in your email to libertyandfinance@protonmail.com. We'll get right back with you and find out how to best meet your needs so that you can either begin or increase your acquisition of physical precious metals now and protect your family's future starting today.